Welcome back to Woman, Conversations in Black and White. I'm Bernadette.
And I'm Linda. We're choosing to share our conversations on sensitive topics across racial lines to enlighten ourselves and to share with our listeners and encourage you to do the same. Today's topic
we are calling Gratitude with a Girdle because it is woman to woman. And unfortunately, almost every woman knows what it's like to have a girdle on. And so there are times in life, even where our experience of gratitude is tempered based on our race and how we're able to move through society. And so we had an experience with that this week sometimes we do Zoom calls where we create safe spaces for people to talk about these sensitive topics so that way we can have some open and honest conversations. And so there was something that came up during one of our calls this week that Linda experienced differently. And so we decided to make it an episode.
So I heard a woman whom I admire and respect, who is Black, ask me about, I was talking about dealing with anxiety and fear, I think things like that. And I said, well, I do it by focusing on gratitude. And she asked me, so what are you grateful for? And that was not a hard question for me to answer because there are many things I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my marriage. I'm grateful for my home. I'm grateful for my children and grandchildren and for my plants. I have a big relationship with plants. You can see some of them behind. And that's another thing Bernadette and I have in common. You can see all the plants behind her too. So grateful for my garden. And I said that. And she responded with something that surprised me. And Bernadette, maybe you can hear her comment, repeat it a little closer than I can.
Her response was, essentially I am grateful for those things as well, but the level of gratitude that you have, I can only experience vicariously through you. And so Linda and I have known each other long enough, and we know each other well enough now where I could see from the look on Linda's face, that was not the comment that she was expecting or prepared to receive. However, I, as a Black woman, the lady who we're speaking of, who said this was a Black woman, I knew just what she was talking about, and I knew just what she meant. So before I explain that, Linda, you want to explain how it hits you?
Yes. I admire and respect this woman and care for her. And for her to say that, you know, I couldn't remember the exact words afterwards, but essentially the way I remembered it was, I'm not able to feel gratitude like that. And I thought, how could you not feel gratitude? Gratitude is to me like the air that I breathe. It's like the depth of my heart. It's like when everything else is lost, I look for something to feel grateful for. And I thought about that for probably two full days. And then today, when we began talking about our topics for today, I brought it up. And because Bernadette understood exactly what she meant, we chose to make it a topic. So I was dumbfounded by that. Well, I'm just going to be blunt here. I thought either her experience of racism is even worse than I thought, or I just don't understand it. I just don't understand how someone can live without a sense of gratitude. And while I may still have a little question about that, Bernadette understood perfectly. And so we'll let Bernadette take over from here.
So
I will say this, the whole reason we talk to each other is not so that we end up on exactly the same page always, because we don't always, but so we actually have empathy and heart connections with each other because we actually listened and we actually understand. So that's what I'll preface this with. I understand better because of you.
Yes. And so Linda did say, she was like, well, I don't understand how you could not have any gratitude, or how do you live life like that? Or or maybe racism is more than I thought. And I said, well, it is yes and yes. Black people do experience gratitude. We do have moments of profound gratitude. And I said to Linda, but our gratitude is and always has been tempered, because anything that we are grateful for or have can be snatched away from us without warning, solely due to race. I recognize that we recognize that cancer happens, car accidents happen, life happens. All of those things that white people can experience happen to us as well. But in addition to that, the hate that society has bred for Black people can cause tragedies in our lives based solely on being Black. So every experience that we have is always tempered by that. I said it's like having gratitude with the girdle. You feel it, but it is always constricted, and it is always with bated breath, because you don't know how long you get to keep it. So I knew just what she was saying and just how she felt and just what it is like to live that way based solely on the color of our skin. And so I gave Linda that explanation. And I think, well, I can't speak for you, but I think you were able to receive it better and clearer than what you had originally thought it meant.
Definitely. And I guess it reminds me of times in my life when I have been particularly afraid for something specific in my life, and if I were to live in that place all the time, where I was afraid that something that I loved could be or might be taken from me, it would be much more difficult to live with a state of gratitude. And I don't even know where to go with that, but I'm grateful that you helped me understand that comment that from her was very heartfelt. And yet I had trouble grasping it, where it was coming from.
And what that looks like in everyday life is like, when your kids become driving age and you get excited about them getting their first cars. For Black parents, that is always tempered with, now they have to start interacting with the police in a way that I may not always be there. And it can go wrong quickly, and I will no longer have a child. Or for women, or for parents who are raising boys, as they get older and their bodies start changing. Like my son is 13 now, and they start taking on those more manly looks, which is normal for every single little boy to go through. That means now they're going to be perceived as more of a threat. So you're celebrating them growing up, but you're also holding your breath, because the experiences that are going to come with that, we know, can be traumatic and painful and sometimes life ending. And so that is what it feels like every single day. That's what it feels like. You are excited, but you can only be so excited to a point, because what comes with that can be exceptionally painful.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess I would say that maybe more than any other of our recorded conversations, this one, it's like there's no real answer except just trying to understand each other. And I do understand it better. And if you try to put yourself in the place of, I'm grateful, but I could lose this at any moment, it's much more difficult. And I've been in those positions for short periods, but never for extended periods. So thank you for making that clear to me, Bernadette. Is there anything else
But I think that is part of the answer, though, Linda. I think you, for one, recognizing that answer was not your reality, and then wondering why, and then asking, well, I don't understand why that is, and receiving the answer that brings a different awareness to you. I think the answer here is that we bring the awareness, because and you wouldn't have a reason to know that because it's not your experience. But if you take the time to ask and truly listen to the answer, then that makes you more empathetic, and that moves you towards, how can I make it as to where you can be grateful to the exact same level of gratitude that I'm able to feel without having these additional fears. I think this is part of the answer.
Right. Thank you. That's hopeful. And, you know, I'll throw in here, because in our last recorded session, we talked about it. But for those people who are fairly new to all this, remember, we're going to give the definition of white privilege one more time. That white privilege does not mean that nothing bad happened in your life. There are severely traumatized white people too. It simply means that the color of your skin was not one of the things that made your life harder. That's all it means. Mm-hmm. You can be a severely traumatized white person, but it isn't because you were white. It's just because of the life circumstances that were given to you or that you experienced. So mm-hmm. Thank you for helping me understand.
Absolutely. Thank you for being willing to learn and for recognizing it wasn't anything personal to you. It's just a different experience, and recognizing that there are some things that are universal, but then there are some things that aren't, that are based solely on skin color. And so we got to work on making more things universal just because they should be universal.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. We all live in the same country, but we don't all have the same cultural experiences. That's one of them. It's almost as if Bernadette lives 4 houses down from me, and we like that. We're great with that. But one of the things I enjoy visiting other countries and immersing myself in other cultures. And sometimes during COVID, especially, I've done it more with movies than other things. You can go there, you can dive in, and afterwards you feel like, whoa, that was so amazing. But it's startling to me how different the culture of Bernadette and her family is. I mean, there's many things that are the same, but there's a whole set of things that are different. So one of the things I do in my mind is, well, it's sort of like visiting another country, but it's just 4 houses away. And that's one way I kind of open my mind to exploring. It is different. Your experience of living is different than mine, despite the fact that we gardens and plants and counseling and all these wonderful things that we have in common. We still have a whole set of different experiences too. So,
and yes, and you've got to learn about those things and understand those things, because you've taken, and speaks to diversity. When you have people in your friend and your heart circle that don't look like you, that makes your heart grows in ways that it normally would not.
I agree.
And so that's what Linda and I always speak with. If everyone in your friend circle looks just like you,
stretch your friend circle.
Yes. Stretch your friend circle. Yes, because then that causes you to grow in ways that you normally would not. You just wouldn't do it if there weren't people in your life that you love and care about, that were experiencing life completely different than you are. You just wouldn't do it.
Right. Exactly. So, all right.
Yes. So be open to learning, be willing to hear, but be open to learning and understanding that gratitude looks different depending on where you are, but that some of the gratitude we get to experience, society dictates how broad we get to experience. And that is what we can all work towards changing. So as Linda and I always say, start talking, keep talking, and we'll see you real soon.
Thanks for listening. Bye.